All right, for this explainer, we're doing something a little different. We're going to pull back the curtain. See, we're not just here to explain one complex topic, we're going to show you how you can explain any complex topic. We'll take a really dense, tricky story and turn it into something crystal clear. And yeah, we're going to do it right now, together.
And we're going to do it by diving into a mystery that honestly sounds impossible. How can just one number decide the fate of an ancient mountain range that's been around for millions of years? I mean, think about that. That single question, that's the heart of the story we're getting into today.
Okay, so let's start with the real-world issue that's going to be our case study here. And this isn't just some, academic exercise. This is about the very real, high-stakes fate of India's Aravalli Hills.
To really get what's at stake, you first got to understand what the Aravallis even are. I mean, these are one of the oldest mountain ranges on the entire planet. They were ancient, before the Himalayas even existed. For North India, both the people and the environment, they're not just mountains, they're a lifeline, literally.
So why a lifeline? Well, for starters, they're this huge natural wall holding back the massive Thar Desert. They're also like a giant sponge, soaking up water and recharging the groundwater that millions of people need to survive. Plus, they're a safe haven for countless animals and plants. They stop the soil from washing away, and get this, they actually clean the air for the whole region. Super important.
But here's the thing. This absolutely vital ecosystem, it's been under attack, non-stop, for decades. We're talking massive mining operations, huge areas of deforestation, pollution, and just unchecked urban sprawl, all of it chipping away at this ancient landscape, bit by bit. And this is where our challenge, the Explainer's Challenge, really kicks in. You've got this super important situation, but it's also a total mess, incredibly complex. So where do you even start, right? How do you take all of that complexity and make it clear?
This is the big question for anyone trying to explain something. Whether you're a creator or teacher, anyone. You're staring at this mountain of information. How do you possibly boil that down into something that people can not only understand, but actually care about?
And look, this right here shows you the journey we have to take. On one side, you've got the raw, messy stuff, the legal docs, the ecological data, conflicting reports, decades of history. And on the other side, that's our goal, a clear explainer. Simple visuals, key takeaways, a story you can actually follow. Getting from that mess to that clarity, that's the whole game. So, how do we do it? How do we make that leap? Well, we're going to use a pretty cool modern AI-powered workflow. It's something that can take the process of turning a super dense document into a clear video and just speed it up like crazy.
The whole workflow is basically just 4 simple steps. Step 1, you upload your source material. Think PDFs, articles, whatever. Step 2, you let an AI tool take a crack at it, generating a first draft video with a script and audio. Step 3, you use AI image generators to create custom visuals for your topic. And then, step 4, and this is the most important part, you, the human, step in to edit and refine the whole thing into something truly polished.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Look, AI is an amazing tool, a fantastic starting point, but it is not the finish line. As the quote says, you have to add your own artistry, your own editing. If you just copy and paste, it's never gonna work. It's that human touch that actually makes a story connect with other humans.
All right, that's enough theory. Let's actually put this workflow to the test. Right now, we're going to use this exact process to build our own mini explainer about the absolute core of the Aravalli controversy, something called the 100-meter rule. So picture this. For decades, there's been all this legal confusion. Nobody could agree on what an Aravalli Hill even was, legally speaking. So finally, the Supreme Court steps in. And their goal was a good one, They wanted to create one simple, clear standard to end all the fighting and just decide once and for all which parts of the range needed to be protected. And to do that, they settled on one single, deceptively simple number. Just one number to define a mountain, 100 meters.
The new rule was incredibly simple. To be called an Aravalli Hill and get legal protection, a landform had to be at least 100 meters high from the ground around it. Seems straightforward, right? But the consequences of that one simple rule were absolutely staggering.
Because with that one decision, legal protection was just gone for an estimated 90% of the entire Aravalli range. Let that sink in. 90%. Only 10% of the hills were tall enough to meet the new rule. So overnight, 9 out of every 10 pieces of this ancient ecosystem were just not legally Aravalli anymore.
So you have to ask, what exactly was in that 90% that lost protection? Well, it turns out
Pretty much everything that makes the ecosystem function. The lower hills, the slopes that prevent erosion, those critical zones that recharge the groundwater. Critics say this rule basically stripped protection from the most important ecological parts of the whole system, leaving them wide open for things like mining and development.
Okay, let's just take a breath and step back for a second. What we just did here, together, demonstrates the real power of a clear explanation. It's all about that process of turning raw, messy information into real understanding.
Think about it. We just took a super complicated crisis, mixing geology, law, ecology, all of it, and we used a simple workflow to boil it down into a story that anyone can follow. We found the heart of the problem and made it make sense.
And that really gets to why this stuff matters. The goal isn't just to throw facts at people. I love this quote from the source material. What is the point if I say something and people don't find it interesting, right? We have to make it engaging so people actually stick around. The real goal is helping people feel the meaning behind all the data.
And ultimately, that is the real power here. This technology, this whole workflow, it's just a tool. But it's a tool that lets us take this messy, complicated world and create these little pockets of shared understanding. It lets more people join in on really important conversations because for the first time, maybe they can finally get what's really at stake.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. When the technology makes it this easy to explain pretty much anything, the biggest challenge isn't how we're going to explain things anymore. It's what. What stories are we going to choose to tell? What story will you choose to explain?